welcome to today's Business Builders Podcast. My name is Tom Borg, and I strive to bring to you some of the most creative and the sharpest minds out there. And today is no exception with Mr. Daron Powers. You know, today we do live in a time of world tension, pandemics, inflation, and rapid change. And whether it's learning how to cope with stress or overcome setbacks or develop a more resilient mindset, it's important to keep focused. Daron Powers is the author of Future Vision, 6 Steps to Harness Your Power and Achieve Goals in the New Normal. Over the last 4 decades, Daron has created and presented performance improvement programs impacting over 400,000 people in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. He's a former award-winning Dale Carnegie leadership coach, an Air Force veteran, and today, a consultant to Fortune 500 companies, martial arts instructor, and a speaker, seminar leader, and coach. Daron, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for reading that introduction the way I wrote it.
Yeah, I always try to do the best I can. Hey,
No, it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm really, really excited. Thank you for the invitation.
you're welcome. Now, your book, Future Vision. Why this book at this time? Tell us.
Well, when the pandemic started, it was the perfect opportunity for me to put into writing the things I've been doing over the years. Future Vision started back in the early 90s as a program for the public, an 8-hour seminar, and the Ford Motor picked it up, and we had really great results. Well, I began updating the technology in the program itself and working one-on-one with people, and I was getting great results. And I realized when the pandemic hit that things are going to change for people. They're going to need help. Well, at any stage of life, they're going to probably need to make changes. And if you look around at what's happened since then, there was a report by the Harris poll. They discovered that during the COVID, people gained an average of 29 pounds. They're coping with stress, sleep issues, alcohol, drug addiction. Many of them have delayed their health care and much less active. So it's a great time to ask ourselves, what direction do I want to go? All people at all stages of life need to change, but right now is an opportunity. And I think this book answers that question. How can I make the changes I want to make?
Mm-hmm. So in this book, you talk about a 6-stage process. What's behind that process?
Well, there's 6 steps, but the 3 overarching ideas are: one is to have worthwhile goals. Direction is so important. And, I recall a incident from the seminar, the Future Vision seminar. Dawn came in and she was a law student, and she was getting ready to take her law exams, tests, right? And she was having a rough time with it. She was somehow just not quite working for her. And she came to the Future Vision seminar. And as a result of looking at the bigger picture of her life and her direction and thinking about the things that she'd really like to do with her life, she decided, instead of going to take that exam, to go to Israel and do a life's journey. And she came back and she decided, I really don't want to be a lawyer. And I think all her brothers and sisters are doctors and lawyers. And she sat her parents down and said, I don't really want to do this. I don't think this is a good fit for me. And they supported her. And what that really showed me was that if you dig a little bit deeper, you're going to get to the essence of what you really want in life. Sometimes the path is not clear. And what the Future Vision does is it helps to clear that path. That's the first part. The second part is it helps to design a mindset that's more resilient. Oftentimes we want to accomplish things, but there are things in our way externally, but also internally. And the book gets at what are those internal issues? What are the things that can sabotage your goals? And it helps to neutralize them, reduce them, or in many cases, actually eliminate them. I'm thinking about Denise. She is she's an entrepreneur, and she was feeling at this point in her life, she came to me, this is a couple of months ago, she came to me and said, I feel a little bit not relevant. And she had done very well in the past. She had created some courses and she developed them in such a way that Fortune 500 companies were interested, and she did very well for herself. So we sat down, we worked through some consultations, worked through the 6 steps of the book. And she discovered that she had some issues from the past that we were able to resolve. And as a result of that, she started writing.
Mm,
And much to my surprise, she decided to take a class in writing. She began writing every day. She formed a group and she's thinking about writing a book. So she went from being what she thought was irrelevant, and she's a very smart person, very
mhm,
successful in her past, to becoming relevant again. So
mm,
sometimes we have these issues inside ourselves. And what this book does is it helps to reveal that so that people can move forward in their lives. And then the last piece. So the first piece is, the goal setting, the direction. The second piece is mindset. And the last piece really is organizing your environment externally so that it supports you, so that the
mhm,
kinds of people that are around you are the kinds of people that are helping you to move forward in your life rather than pulling you down or pulling you back. And some of the small pieces that we use that turn out to be very big for people are affirmation process. So I actually teach people how to use affirmations, because you can't just pull them off the shelf and expect them to work for you. I'm a
mhm.
great person. I feel good. I feel great. These
Right.
are all good
Yeah.
things, but we tailor it to who you are as a person, and then help to use technology as well as simple analog things like 3x5 cards to create the environment so it's supporting you on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm. So when you talk to your clients and some of the people that come to you for coaching, uh, what are some of the things you can help them gain insight to that may have been blocking them in the past?
Well, what we do is at step 3, we actually step 2 of the process.
Uh-huh.
Once we've set the goal, the question that we're asking is, well, what's standing in your way? Or
Yeah.
what do you believe is standing in your way? Because if we don't deal with those issues, uh, it, we're not likely to make progress.
Mm,
And oftentimes, you get so far towards your goal and suddenly you stop or you
mhm,
procrastinate or things aren't working out. So what's stopping you? What's holding you back? And in many goal setting processes, that's not addressed. And that
mhm,
needs to be addressed, because if we don't, it's easy for us to self-sabotage ourselves subconsciously. And as a
mhm,
result of that, maybe not make the progress we'd like to make at the speed we like to make, or maybe in the way we'd like to make it.
mhm. So when you say identify some of these things that we could be using to self-sabotage ourselves, what would be some of the examples you've heard from some of your past clients that
Okay, well, for example, with the person I just mentioned, Denise,
uh-huh.
she, for example, didn't didn't realize that what her father had told her when she
Mm,
went to college was impacting her, which
mm.
was, look, I don't want to spend this money on college because, you're just going to go find yourself a husband, right?
Oh boy.
And I'm just
Yeah.
wasting my money. Well, later on,
Hmm.
she did very, very well for herself. And she came back one day and she's talking with her father, and she's starting to make all this money. And he says to her, yeah, so are you going to be like one of those rich bitches? Just like the and,
Really?
okay.
Hmm.
She didn't even realize this was in the back of her mind.
Uh,
And so we worked through that in step 3, neutralized that. She had another issue with the brother, a brother who had unfortunately had killed himself.
mm,
He was in a union. He spoke his mind and somebody eliminated him. So she had learned, look, I'm
boy.
not going to use social media. I'm not going to be the person who actually puts myself out there because I'm afraid that something's going to happen to me. Well,
Hmm.
we neutralized those thoughts.
Mhm.
She had completely forgot they were neutralized, and she began moving in the direction. And I was talking with her later on and I said, so do you remember what was in your way from, you're now writing, and this is something that's really important to you. Do you remember what was standing in your way? She couldn't remember. I reminded her and she says, oh my God. She says, apparently that step 3 actually worked, because I didn't even remember that it was keeping me from moving forward. So we often
Mhm.
have issues. Um,
Sure.
and it makes a huge difference to get to those. And we don't know what they are when we start. It's
Yeah.
particularly for you doing a consulting process. I don't know what they are.
Mhm.
Sometimes people don't know what they are, but
Sure.
by setting the goal and then looking at, hey, what are the possible objections? That's how we eventually get down to what
Mm.
might be in the way.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a lot of therapy. It's quick, it's fast. I mean,
Yeah.
it happens within minutes and it can
Yeah.
change your life forever.
Absolutely. And Darren, you're hitting on a very good point. Many times people just can't see those obstacles, or if they see them or they might be aware of them, they're not really objective enough to do something with them. Where an outside coach like yourself, you can help them sort that out, help them work through the processes they need to become better at pushing those obstacles to the side, and then really doing what it takes to move towards their goal.
Absolutely. And you hit a key point. I had an advertising executive that I was working with, and she had been through divorce and had a couple of kids and
Hmm.
bought a bought a home, and she went into another relationship and it was rocky. It wasn't working quite working for her.
Mm,
And so we walked through this process, and later on she told me that it really helped her to have the life she has now. So after this process, she eventually did get in the relationship she wanted. She started paying attention to her kids. She paid attention to her home. She started putting her life together. She settled down in a way that she was able to attain goals. And she got the dream job of her life. And she has the relationship of her life. And what she said was this process not only gets the obstacles out of the way, but then it gives you a direction to go in. Because
mm,
you meet with other consultants and therapists, and there are so many good ones
yes.
there. Unfortunately, sometimes they get the obstacles out of the way, but there's not a direction to go towards, and that's
Hmm.
key.
Right. Well, let's say the person actually reaches that goal they're striving for. Then what do you tell them to do? I mean, obviously, you just can't stop with one goal that you've achieved. What's
Well,
next
that's
for
a
them?
really good point. I set the book up so that you could go through this process over and over and over, because
Mm,
one of the things that's really clear is you can't get it wrong and you never get it done. We're always going to want or need something.
hmm.
And when it's time to make a change, whether it's we're maybe the path is, we set another goal and the path is not clear. And, we find ourselves in stress or anxiety, or maybe even some grief because
Mm,
things have happened in our life. People have died,
mm,
right? Feel like we're
yeah,
frustrated, we're wasting time. Um, it's great to pick up the book, set the goal, and go through the 6-step process. And once you've got it down, you can repeat it over and over and over. And I would hope that people would understand this is not the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is not the only program. There are a
mm,
lot of great processes out there. This is one that I've seen work for me, work for my friends, and work for my clients.
sure. So here's a thought for you. So this business about happiness being found along the way, not at the end of the road or at the end of the goal, or when you reach your goal. What can you tell us about that?
About happiness
And
along the
how you
way.
just how you enjoy this process of reaching your goals.
Wow, that's you threw me on that one, buddy.
I know you
Because
can answer it.
well, no, I think what I have learned through, all these years of life is that it's not about the goal.
Mm,
It's about the journey.
mm,
And I know in my own life, I realize that I'm not going to be happy when I get this or that, when I have this relationship or this amount of money or this particular material thing or this kind of relationship with my children, or it's what I feel right now. It's
mhm,
how can I make myself happy right now? How can I find that part in myself that makes me sing, that makes me in harmony, that makes me appreciate the things that I have? And,
mhm,
I think that's actually part of the process. And I created a workbook and I just published that a couple of weeks ago.
mhm.
And in the workbook for this course,
Uh-huh.
there are pages here that I ask people to, let me see if I can just run that right there. There's the workbook.
Oh, yeah.
Woo, okay.
Mhm, mhm.
In that workbook, I have some pages I ask people to Xerox and then make copies of, and then go through them. And in them are in each page, there is an opportunity to think about what you're grateful for each day. I think it's so important to focus on gratitude, because
Mhm,
when you have gratitude for not only what you have, but for what you're about to get, it
mm,
brings a sense of happiness, peace, and joy. And then one of the things I do every day in my own life is I pray or meditate every
mm,
morning. And that sets the tone for the day. I, of course, go over my goals. and all the things that I appreciate and all the things that I'm moving toward.
So it's a daily process. It's not just something you do once and forget about it. You have a whole system that you can teach people.
Well, that's right. I mean, I am advocating a system to achieve your goals, but beyond that, I'd really love for people to have a way to approach their life every morning, a system, a ritual that will set them up for success. And there's
hmm
simple things that they can do.
Well, so tell us, what are some of the things people can do to set and reach their goals?
Well, first of all, let me just talk a little bit about when you're setting goals.
Yes.
Uh, what's important about setting that goal?
Mm,
Number one, the goal needs to be worthwhile.
mm,
If we go back to the example with Dawn, who was studying for her law exam, she was working towards a goal. It may have been worthwhile for her mother and her father, or for her peers, or her
mm,
spouse, or anybody else in her life. But the question is it worthwhile to the individual? The goal
mm,
needs to be worthwhile to you. And what this book does, it helps you to sort out what is worthwhile and what's not worthwhile in your perception, not other people's
mm,
perception.
mhm,
Then, secondly, it's important to ask yourself, why do I want this? Why do I want the goal? And your first answer won't always be the only answer.
mm,
It's important to go beyond that first answer. So you may say, "Oh, look, I want to increase my income." And so that's the goal. Well, why? Well, because that will allow me to have to buy more things, to have more choices. Well, why
mhm,
is that important?
mm,
Well, because I want to own my home free and clear. Oh, okay. Well, why is that important? Well, because I want a sense of peace, a sense of security, so that I can do some other things. Well, like what? Well, I want to be able to travel. And you see, if I
mhm, really
just
helping
ask
them.
them,
Yeah.
why do you want to increase your income? And they go for the first answer, you don't get to the juice. It's
Mm,
really important in setting your goals to get to the juice, the
mm,
emotion, the
mm,
things that will move you, because it's not logic that's going to move your goal forward. It's going to
mhm,
be emotion and inspiration. It's not enough just to be motivated. You need to be inspired. And
mhm,
nobody can inspire you like yourself.
mhm,
Nobody can do your push-ups for you. Nobody can take your vitamins for you. It's, you know, being an effective goal setter and getting what you want is really in your hands. And that's why I believe we need some sort of process, whether it's mine or somebody's. You need a process to walk you through that step by step by step, to
mhm.
dot the I's, cross the T's.
Gotcha. So what are some of the products, services that you can offer to our listeners that will help them develop the goal setting process?
Well, first of all, there's the book. The book
Mhm,
was just published in January. It's available on Amazon. There's
mhm,
also the workbook, and the workbook I just showed you,
mhm,
which I'm really proud of, because it's a place to write. You can write all your ideas, and there's also
mm,
the audio. So you've got
mhm,
the book, you've got the audio, and you've got the workbook. And between those three assets, you can pretty much do what needs to be done.
mhm.
Now, if you get stuck, or you feel like maybe you like to bounce it off other people, I'm also available as a coach.
Okay.
And so if people are interested, I would offer them a complimentary session that is
Mhm,
20 minutes to find out what it is they'd like to do, and if it makes sense, because it doesn't make sense for everybody.
mhm,
But we'd find out what your outcomes would be and how we might approach it. So
mhm.
those are some of the
That'd be
products.
great. So they could give you a call, and for a complimentary 20-minute session they could have with you, no strings attached. They could get some insights to how they could get their goal setting started and go from there.
Absolutely. The other thing that I'd like to make available to your listeners, and by the way, thank you once again for inviting me. And I thought, hey, what could I do to thank Tom's listeners for tuning in today? And I'm offering a free chapter of the book in goal setting, the step one, the very first
Mhm.
step. That will be free. You can get that. Plus, you can get the audio version of that if you'd like.
Okay.
And all I have to do is go to my website, and first page, click the button, and within moments, you'll have the first chapter either in PDF or in an audio format, or both if you'd like.
Mm, great. And we'll have that website. You'll see it on the screen right now. You feel free to connect with that and go right to to Darren's website. Outstanding. All right. Any other tips for us? Any things you can offer to us as we wrap this interview up?
Well, I would say it has to do with make sure your surroundings support who you are and what you want to create in your life. I think the last thing I would say is, we live in somewhat divisive times right now. Politically, a lot of things are happening that can cause people to be negative. I'd say, you know what? Try to stay away from the negative. If you find yourself exposing yourself to media that is distracting or causing you upset, shut it off. I like
Yeah.
social media. I do post on social media. Sometimes I find myself getting a little too involved, and I have to say, not today. I'm going to push this away. Or sometimes I'll find myself getting involved in some of the political things that are going on. And if I have a choice, I'll choose something else, maybe something that's positive or motivational to put into my head. So that's what I would say to people. Just be careful about who you're around, what you're taking in, because you want to ask yourself, is it supporting my goal, or is it dragging me down, taking me further away?
Absolutely. Powerful, powerful words of advice there, Darren. Right on the money. Right on the money. Well, all right. Well, listen, if people want to get hold of you then one more time, how do they, if they want to just reach out to you, what's that phone number? What's your website? Just shout it out and I'll
Well,
put
the
it up.
website will be www.futurevisionpower.com, or pick up your phone if you'd like. Text me 248-470-8379, and I'll be happy to talk with you.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on the program here today. We got to have you back. Going to have you back because I know there's lots more where that came from. So in the meantime, I want to say thank you for everyone that's listening in on our program today. And thank you, Daron Powers. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Tom Borg.
You're welcome.